We begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Chavav Amud Aleph. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, HaKosev Toifse Gittin. A person that's writing the template of a get. We learned already before a few times in the Gemara that a get has two parts, the Toifis and the Teirif. The Toifis is the standard nusach that you have in the get. The Teirif, as we'll see right here in the Mishnah, is specific information for this get that has to be written lishma. So the Mishnah says, you're writing the template of a get. You have to leave space where you write the name of the man, the name of the woman, and also the space where you write the time, the date for the get. And that, because that will, as we'll see in the Gemara, there's actually a few opinions how to understand this Mishnah, but simply the understanding of the Mishnah is because this has to be written lishma. So therefore that you have to leave out. So it should be written lishma. Shtare malve or shtare milve, similar when it comes to a document used for a loan. Tzarich sheyaniach mokim milve. You also have to, or mokim malve, that is, sorry. When you're writing a document, a template that's going to be used for a loan, that's the money is going to be borrowed, but the names, which are the name of the malve, the lender, mokim aloive, the name of the borrower, mokim amois, the place where you write the amount of money, mokim azman, the place where you write the date. You also have to leave that out. Even though by a star for money there's no issue of lishma, but this is a gzeira, that you shouldn't come to write also a get without leaving all of this out. So Chachamim were geizer that by every star as well you should leave this out. Similar when it comes to shtari mekach, when you have the shtaris that are written for a sale. You have to leave empty the place of the buyer, the place where you write the name of the seller, the place where you write the amount of money, the place where you write the exact property that's being sold, what its boundaries are, and the place where you write the date. Now the Mishnah finishes off mipnei hatakana. This halacha of writing the teifis of the get, but leaving out the teirif of the get, this is all Chachamim instituted this. Now, what exactly the takana over here is, we'll see in the Gemara. There's a few opinions about this. Sagt the Mishnah weiter, Rabbi Yehuda paisel bekulan. Rabbi Yehuda says, in all of these cases, the get will be pasul, even if you leave out the teirif, the makim ish ve'ish and so on. It'll be pasul. Meaning, Rabbi Yehuda says that you must write both the teifis and the teirif. Lishma, you can't write it, and this is not only by a get, this is by everything, by all other status as well. The Gemara will explain Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Lazar machshe bekulan. Rabbi Lazar says by the ashtar mekach or ashtar milve used for a loan or for a sale. So over there, if you write it the way the Mishnah described before, that you leave out the place of the name of the lekeach and the moicher and so on, over there it's going to be kosher. Chutz mi Gittin oshim. But by a get used for a woman, over here you have to write the whole thing lishma. You can't write and just leave out the teirif. By Gittin oshim, you have to write everything. The teifis and the teirif, Rashi says, is a gzeira, because if you're going to write the teifis not lishma, you may come to write the teirif also shalei lishma. Shenemar, and the pasuk says v'kosav lo lishma. The get has to be written lishma. So it looks like the Mishnah is saying that the actual pasuk says that the teifis has to be written lishma. But the truth is, the pasuk is not talking about the teifis. The template of the get, minat Torah, does not have to be written lishma. Okay, so the Gemara will explain the language of the Mishnah. So Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, in our Mishnah, it said you have to leave out the place of the ish, isha, and the date. But additionally, tzarich sheyaniach af makayim hareat muteres l'chol adam. Also, the words that are written in the get, hareyat muteres l'chol adam, that's the ikr of the get. That's the ikr that you're writing, that you're divorcing her. That also has to be written l'shma, so that has to be left out. Until the husband comes and gives his permission, or he says to write the get, you can't write it without him. Just by the way, over here from this Mishnah and Gemara, you see that when it comes to the halacha of writing l'shma, a sefer can't say, well, I'm going to write the get l'shem gerishin, I'm going to write it l'shem ishva isha, even though the husband never asked me to write this get, but if and when I'll need it, it'll be there available for him. That's not called l'shma. If you didn't get permission from the husband, there's no mitzias of gerishin and for this ish and isha, so you can't. The l'shma is only when the husband comes and tells you and asks you to write it for him. So Shmuel is adding to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah didn't say this point. Apparently, The Mishnah didn't say this because it's obvious. This is the ikar of the get, and therefore it has to be written l'shma. Now Shmuel explains, but Rabbi Lozi, the Tana of our Mishnah here that says that the main points of the get must be written l'shma, this is following the opinion of Rabbi Loza. The Hama, what does Rabbi Loza say? Eidei mesire karti. That when the only edim that you have for a get, or that you need minat Torah for a get, is only the edim that are there when you give the get. There's no edim that signed the get. If so, when it says in the Torah, v'kosav lo sefer krisis, what does v'kosav mean? It doesn't go on the signatures, it goes on the actual writing of the get. So therefore, when the Torah says v'kosav lo, it means that the writing of the get has to be l'shma. So therefore, when it's said in the Mishnah, the Torah has to be written l'shma, it's Rabbi Loza's opinion. Okay, now the Gemara connects this back to Mishnayos that we learned before. And Shmuel explained those Mishnayos as well. This was actually in the previous Pedic, on Daf Chof Aleph and on Daf Chof Beis. Before, there were also Mishnayos that were discussing the halachas of writing the get. There was a Mishnah we had on Daf Chof Aleph that discussed the halacha of mechuber. Could you write a get when it's mechuber or not? That's one Mishnah. Then we had another Mishnah regarding a chere on Daf Chof Beis, regarding a chere sheitiv v'kotten, writing a get. Now regarding both of those Mishnayos, Shmuel came and explained that it's following Rabbi Loza's opinion. And Rabbi Loza says that the toifis of the get cannot be written mechuber when it's still attached to the ground. But the toifis could be minat Torah. Mit the Rabbanan, they were guys you shouldn't. That's how he explained the Mishnah of Chof Aleph. Similar regarding the Mishnah of Cheresh Sheitiv V'Katan, Shmuel also explained that Mishnah is Rabbi Lazar. And a Cheresh Sheitiv V'Katan can only write the toifis of a get, not the toifis. So the Gemara now wants to understand, why does Shmuel have to keep on repeating himself to say that all of these Mishnayos go according to Rabbi Lazar? Says the Gemara, Shmuel had to explain regarding all of these Mishnayos that it goes like Rabbi Lazar. If Shmuel would say only regarding the first Mishnah on Daf Chof Aleph, where it discusses the get being written mechuber, so that would say by he who the ikla ikme Rabbi Lazar. Only over there could I say that Mishnah goes like Rabbi Lazar, because that's what it sounds like from the words of the Mishnah. Diktani, the Mishnah says, ein kaisven. You don't write the get when it's attached to the ground. Or Kitani, right after that, the Mishnah said kosvoi. If you wrote it when it's attached to the ground, so then the Mishnah says it's kosher. So in that Mishnah, it doesn't mention one word about the signatures. It just talks about the writing. Ein kaisvin and kasvai. So the lashon of the Mishnah shows that it's speaking just about the writing of the get, and that there's two parts. There's the get, the toifis of the get, and on that it says that if you wrote it mechuber b'diavad, it's okay. And then there's what it says, and ein kaisvin the lechatchila, even the toifis of the get should not be written when it's mechuber to the ground. So because that Mishnah doesn't mention a word about chsimeh, that's why Shmuel over there said that it goes according to Rabbi Lazar. But that the next Mishnah on Daf Chav Beis, where it speaks about a cheresh sheitiv v'kotten, not writing a get. So over there Shmuel came and said that, or actually that Mishnah says that a cheresh sheitiv v'kotten could write the get. And Shmuel says that the cheresh sheitiv v'kotten can only write the toifis and not the toirif. So over there, that's a much bigger chiddush, because Diktani, in the end of that Mishnah it says, She'en kiyam a get, ela b'choismav. That what validates a get? The signatures. The simple pshat of the Mishnah seems like that it's going like Reb Meir. So Shmuel has to be mechadish to know that Mishnah follows Rabbi Lazar. And this last line of En kiyam a get, ela b'choismav, the Gemara there explained, is going on something else. So hey, Rab Meiri, I would think it's Rab Meir, the Almeida Chesima Karti, that says that the signatures is the main thing of the get. So that's why Shmuel has to say regarding that Mishnah Daf Chav Beis. Now coming to our Mishnah here, if Shmuel would say only that Mishnah is Rabbi Lazar, so I would say, it's possible to say that Mishnah is like Rabbi Lazar, as it explains there. But over here, I would say, Rabbi Lazar. We see here in our Mishnah that in the end of the Mishnah, Rabbi Lazar is speaking, and he's arguing with the Tanakhama. So Havareisha lav Rabbi Lazar. So I would say the Reish is probably not Rabbi Lazar. So therefore, Shmuel had to be mechadish that the Tanakhama of our Mishnah also holds like Rabbi Lazar. And as the Gemara will soon explain, there are two opinions according to Rabbi Lazar. Okay, now the Gemara here, even though there's two dots here, it looks like it's a different inyan, but this is actually a continuation of explaining Shmuel's interpretation of the Mishnah, that it follows Rabbi Lazar's opinion. And when it said in the Mishnah that you can write the toifis of the get before the husband says to, but the toifis of the get has to be written l'shma, so this goes according to Rabbi Lazar. And the Mishnah said on this, mipnei takana. Chachamim instituted this. Now, according to Shmuel's pshat, what do these words mean? My takana. What exactly did Chachamim institute over here, according to Rabbi Lazar? Rabbi Yonason explains, according to Shmuel's pshat, this is mipnei takana sefer. This is something that Chachamim instituted for the benefit of the sefer. And the Gemara explains, Rabbi Lazi, this Mishnah, as we said before, like Shmuel said, it's going according to Rabbi Lazi. That there's only Eidim when you give the get. And therefore, when the Torah says the halacha of Lishma, it means the writing has to be Lishma. So therefore, b'dinu the The truth is that really not only the Torah should be written Lishma, but even the Teifis should also be written Lishma. And the reason is because of the Gzeira. If you're going to allow to write the Teifis Shalei Lishma, you may fill in the Teirif, the names as well, also Shalei Lishma. So really, according to Rabbi Lazar, Midrabanan, the whole get should have to be written Lishma, similar to the halacha of by Mechuber. By Mechuber, there's such a Gzeira, you can't write the Teifis Mechuber because you may come to write the Teirif Mechuber. So why didn't Chachamim make that Gzeira here regarding Lishma? Mishom Takanas Seifrim Shara Rabbanan. For the benefit of the Seifrim, what happens if someone comes to a Seifr and he says, I need a get written right now? And the Sefer is busy with another job. He's not going to have the get available. So we allow a Sefer to prepare the template of a get in advance, so if he needs it available to sell or to give to someone, he'll have it available. So the takana is for the purpose of the Sefer. According to this pshat, the Gemara continues to explain the other opinions here in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Paisel B'Kulan, when the Mishnah says that Rabbi Yehuda says not only a get of a Isha, but also when it comes to the other kinds of shtaris, he passes by all of them. You can't write any of it in advance. What's the reason? Gaza teifis atu teirif. He does say that we do apply this decree that you can't write the teifis because then you may come to write the teirif shalei lishma. And then he applies that to all shtaris as well. Gaza shtaris atu gittin. And he says all shtaris as well. You can't write any of it before they actually borrow the money or before they actually are making the sale, because then you may come to do the same by a get and write a get shalei lishma. And then the Mishnah continues and says, Rabbi Lazar machshir b'kulon. Rabbi Lazar says that by other shtaris, you can write the teifis without the teirif, but chutz mi Gittin noshim, but by Gittin noshim you can't do that. You have to wait until the husband says he wants to write a get, and only then could you write even just a template of the get, because teifis atu teirif gazar. He was guided by a get that don't write the teifis, so you shouldn't come to write the teirif shalei lishma. But shtaris to Gittin like Gaza. But to go the next step, to be geyser for other shtaris, that you shouldn't write any of it, so you shouldn't confuse Gittin with other shtaris, that he wasn't geyser. Now the Gemara continues on. This is all a hamshich here, explaining the next part of the Mishnah. When it explained the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, the Mishnah said, Shenemar, that the source that by a get, all of it has to be written Lishma, is because it says in the Pasuk, the Kasav law. The Kasav law means Lishma. Fragt the Gemara, how could the Gemara say that the pasuk is telling this to me? The word law in the pasuk is going only on the unique information for this get, not on the template of the get. So how is the pasuk the source? Ella says the Gemara, you're right. It's not that the pasuk itself it's the source, but because the pasuk says that the teirif has to be written lishma, so Chachamim came and were geyser that the teifis as well should be written lishma. Okay, now again, this is all continuing the pshat of Shmuel in our Mishnah, that our Mishnah is following Rabbi Lazar's opinion. So the question now is, Kashye, the Rabbi Lazar, or the Rabbi Lazar? Isn't there here a contradiction in Rabbi Lazar's opinion? Because Shmuel says that even the Tanakama of our Mishnah that allows to write the Teifis Shalei Lishma is Rabbi Lazar. Only the Teirif has to be written Lishma. But then in the end of the Mishnah, it says Rabbi Lazar Aimer, that when it comes to a get, even the Teifis has to be written Lishma. So how could you say that the ratios of the Mishnah is Rabbi Lazar? Says the Gemara, you're right, according to Shmuel, we have to say, Terei Tanoi V'aliba de Rabbi Lazar. There are two Tanoim that are arguing according to the opinion of Rabbi Lazar. The Tanakama says that according to Rabbi Lazar, it's okay to write the Teifis Shalei Lishma. And then it brings another opinion that Rabbi Lazar says no, that you can't write the Teifis Shalei Lishma. Okay, this is all one pshat in the Mishnah, and this is following, that our Mishnah is following Rabbi Lazar.
The second one is Rabbi Lazar himself.
True, it does say in the Mishnah Rabbi Lazar Aimer, but it's really only one Tana that's saying that this is what Rabbi Lazar holds. The Tanakam in the Mishnah says that Rabbi Lazar holds that the Teifis could be written Shalei Lishma, and we're not geyser. And there's a takana seifrim, as the Gemara explained before. There's a takana seifrim that the sefer should have to get available. Rab Shapsi says in the name of Chizkiah a different pshat in our Mishnah. The Mishnah here is really Rab Meir. And when it says in the Mishnah, mipnei takana, that Chachamim were mesakin, that you write the Teifis without the Teirif, what does the Gemara mean by this? What the Gemara means is that it's a takana mishum ketata, that there shouldn't be any fights over here. The writing the get shouldn't cause a fight between the husband and the wife. And the Gemara spells out what this means. But Rab Meiri, really our Mishnah is Rab Meir. Rab Meir says you have the signatures in the get. So what's the halacha according to Rab Meir? When the Torah writes v'kosav law, what's the lishma of the get? The signatures. So therefore, bedinu da'afilu teirif nami lichtayv. Really, according to Rab Meir, you can write all of the get, even the teirif of the get could also be written shalei lishma. But what's the problem? V'zimnin the shamalei l'seifer the kakosiv. What happens if the wife heard that the seifer wrote a get, a whole entire get for her, and v'savra, and she's going to think iu kamale. It's her husband that told the seifer the right to get for her. And really, the seifer did not hear it from the husband. The seifer just went and wrote it on his own. And and therefore, this causes there to just intensify a fight between the husband and the wife. She says, "Oh, you already told the seifer to write a get for me." So therefore, when the Mishnah says mipnei takana, what the Mishnah is saying is the exact opposite of the pshat that we said before. Really, you could have written the whole entire get, not lishma. Chachamim were mesakin to leave out the shema ishva isha. So if she's going to say the seifer wrote the get, she says, "No, the seifer didn't write any get. Look, there's no name there's my name, your name is not on the get." So therefore, it's not going to create a fight between the husband and the wife. Rav Chisda Amar Avimi, yet a third pshat here in the Mishnah. Rav Chisda says in the name of Avimi, when it says in the Mishnah mipnei takana, what does this mean? Mishum takana sagunais. The Mishnah is saying that there's a takana here that a isha should not end up being stuck as an aguna. Now, what does this mean? Is this Rab Meir or Rab Elazar? So the Gemara brings two pshatim in this itself. Amri la Rab Meir. There are those that say that this takana that she shouldn't become an aguna is following Rab Meir's opinion. V'amri la Rab Elazar. And others say this goes according to Rab Elazar. Amri la Rab Meir. There are those that say this is like Rab Meir. Damar eidich simekart. Rab Meir says the lishma, the main thing is in the signatures. Ubedinu da'afilu teirif nami lichtov. As we said before, according to Rab Meir, you can really write the whole get with the names as well. Shalei lishma. What's going to happen? V'zimnin. Now this get is going to be kosher. If you're going to write it even shalei lishma in advance. So sometimes Zimnim he gets into a fight with her, and the get was already written in advance, and it's a kosher get according to Rav Meir. He gets really angry at her, and out of that anger he throws her the get, and now she's like, she finds herself from one moment to the next divorced, and she's stuck.
There's no chasimus.
No, there are chasimus. The Eidim signed in the get. So to write up a whole entire get takes a long time. To get to we'll see later in the last page, a get is 12 lines with all the halachas. To write it properly would take a long time. He has the get already prepared, and he gets two Eidim to sign it right away, and he throws her the get, and she's going to become an aguna. She's stuck. She's divorced.
She's not a aguna.
Okay, so interesting, true. Usually aguna means a woman that's sort of stuck because her husband left, she's not sure if he's alive or not, and she can't get remarried. This is not the usual term of aguna because she just can get married to someone else. But the very fact that she finds herself divorced from one moment to the next, that according to Rashi is called aguna. But there are other Rishonim that disagree with Rashi and say that the concern is not that he's going to divorce her suddenly, but the concern is that he's going to be so angry, he's going to throw her the get, and he's not going to be makpid to give her the get properly, and then she's going to get the get from him in such a way that it's going to be a suffix if she got it properly or not. And she's going to be in a matzav of suffix mugureshes, and then Shitaka will be stuck. She won't be able to go back to her husband, and she won't be able to get married to anyone else. That's what the Gemara means here. So this is if we say that our Mishnah goes like Rab Meir. So this is what could come out, that she could be an aguna. Amri la, others say Rabbi Elazar, that the problem of becoming an aguna here would be according to Rabbi Elazar. Oh my, the Mistira Karti, Rabbi Elazar says, Eidim only there when you give the get. So therefore the writing of the get has to be lishma, ubedin, udafil teifis, nami loy lichtoif, and therefore really midrabanan, both the teirif and the teifis should not be written lishma. But v'zimnin, the boila mezel medina sayam. What happens if the husband is picking himself up and he's leaving? And when he's about to leave and he wants to write a get for his wife, so she shouldn't get stuck if he doesn't come back, and they don't have any sefer that's going to sit down now and write a get. V'shavikla, he leaves her, v'azal, he goes, and she'll be stuck without getting a get from her husband, and then she'll be an aguna. So for her not to be an aguna, Chacham or Mesakin, that the teifis, the template of the get, could be written in advance. Okay, so we had over here 4 different pshatim in the Mishnah, what it means over here when it said mepnei atakana, that you write just the teifus of the get and not the teirif of the get. Okay, now going to one detail that the Mishnah said, when you leave out in the teirif of the get, what's part of the teirif of the get? Umakim azman. You leave out the space where you write the date of the get. So here the Gemara brings us back to the sugya that we learned before in Daf Yud Zayin regarding writing a date on a get. Min ha-Torah, you don't write a date on a get. So if you remember, the Gemara there brought a machlekes between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Why do you write a date on a get? Rabbi Yochanan says, Shem yechapal basa chaysei. What happens if his wife was mizana, and now he wants to cover up for her that she should not be chayiv misa, so he can take out a get. Now if the get doesn't have a date, he'll claim that he gave her this get before she was mizana, and he'll save her from a chayiv misa. That was Rabbi Yochanan. Shlakish said, no, mishum peiris. What happens if a get has no date? The husband continues eating peiris from the nichsei malug, those properties that the wife brings into the marriage, and after nisuin, he's allowed to eat the peiris from it, and he's going to claim that he divorced her at a later date. So you have to write the date in the get to know exactly at what point he divorced her. So here the Gemara says as follows: Kapasik v'tani, the Mishnah says that you have to leave out that space where you're going to write in the date of the get. Doesn't matter if he's divorcing his wife after full marriage, the second stage of marriage, he's living with her, and or even edison, which is the first stage of marriage when she's not yet living with him at all. Either way, you always have to write in the date of the get. Says the Gemara as follows: if he's already fully married to her. So we understand why it's important to leave out the date, so you write the date later on when you're actually going to be giving it to her on the right date. Whether the reason is that he may cover up for basa chaysai, that's a wife that he's close to, it's a relative of his, and he wants to cover up for her if she's chayiv misa, as I explained before. So it's important to have the right date on the get, so he shouldn't be able to cover up for her. So ikke, you have if he's fully married to her, so then this could be a possibility that he would want to cover up for her. And also, the other opinion, a shlokish, that says that the reason for the date on the get is to know exactly up until what point the paytis belongs to the husband, and from what point the paytis belongs to her. So also, after nisuin, the husband has the right to the paytis, so we have to know up until what point he eats the paytis. But if he's divorcing his wife only after the first stage of marriage, the opinion that says that he may cover up for her, so after the first stage of marriage, she's a full Eishes Ish, and she would be chayiv misa for being mizana, so he may want to cover up for her. But the mandama, Resh Lakish, that says that the only reason for the date is to know up until when he has the right for the peiris. Arusa miyas la peidi. By an arusa, could she have any claim about the peiris, that he ate peiris that belonged to me? There's no nichsei malug that he gets that he only gets that after the full marriage. So what would be the reason to leave out the place for the date of the get? Amar Rav Amram, so Rav Amram says, Ha milsa shamit minei de'ula. So regarding this get that's being given at the time of Edison, that you leave out the date, so I heard about this from Ula, the Amar, and Ula said, Mishum takanas vlad. The reason for this is, Chachamim instituted this for the purpose of a baby born. And I didn't understand exactly what's the pshat, what was the meaning of what Ula said. But then, Kivin the Shamita, Laha the Tanya. Once I heard this that we learned in a Braisa, and the Braisa says as follows: Aimer kisvu get la rusasi. Person says, write this get for this wife of mine that is only still an arusa, only the first stage of marriage. And he says, after I get fully married to her, agarsheno, and then I'm going to use this get to divorce her. So the Braisa says, eine get. You can't use this get that was written beforehand with a date. If you're going to write the get with a date before, from the time of Edison, he can't give her the get later after the nisuin. What's the reason for this? Navama Ula, on that, Ula explained, Matam, what's the reason? Gzeide, because here, Chacham decreed, Shema Yaimru, Gita Kaidem Lubna. What happens if the get has the date from before? And then he gets married to her, and a child is born. People look at the date of the get and they see that the date of the get is from before the nisuin. It's going to appear that he really divorced her before, and the child was born in a time when he wasn't even married to her. Right? So it's not, so Rashi says, in such a case, when a child is born from such a relation, the child is not a mamzer, but it's still a pagam mishpacha. It's still a blemish for the family, and therefore, cham wa geizer, that it shouldn't look this way, that the child was born after the get. So this is what Ola explained that Brais over there. So Hanami over here as well, for a get that was written in the time of Edison, any get that a person is writing to divorce his wife in the time of Edison, what if it ends up happening similar? That he wrote a get now in the time of Edison, but he didn't divorce her right away. He got married, he changed his mind, he went and got married to her, and then later he's going to use that get from before in the time of Edison. So it's going to look like that the get happened before and the child was born afterwards. So therefore, even when you write the get in the time of Edison, you have to leave out the date. And you'll write the date later in the right time when you actually divorced her. We had this once before. This kind of get is what's called get yoshon. So old get. If you write a get and then later the husband lives with his wife, so then the child could be born and it looks like he's born after the get was given already. Okay, the Gemara goes back now to the Mishnah. Who do we paskin like in our Mishnah? We had a couple of opinions. Omer Rav Zera, Omer Rav Abba Bashila, Omer Rav Amnun Saba, Omer Rav Ada Barava, Omer Rav, Halacha Karab Elazar. We paskin like Rabbi Elazar's opinion in the Mishnah. What did he say? That when it comes to a get, you can't write not the Tairif and not even the Taifis Shlei Lishma or Geyser, and you can't write any of it. That was one part of what Rabbi Elazar said. Now, Kari Rav Allah, Rav said regarding Rabbi Elazar's opinion, Allah de Rabbi Elazar, he said about Rabbi Elazar, Tuvine de Hakimi. He's from the good of the wise of the Chachamim. Now, the Gemara inquires regarding the other part that Rabbi Elazar said. There's two things Rabbi Elazar said. Rabbi Elazar also said that by other shtaris, we don't make a gzeira. By other shtaris, you can write a template of a shtar for a loan or for a sale, and you fill in the details later. Now, fragt the Gemara, v'afile b'shtar shtaris nami, do we paskin like Rabbi Elazar when it comes to the other shtaris that it's okay to write that template before? But there could be now another issue with all other shtaris. I mean, the Gemara explained before that Rabbi Elazar is not geiris. Rabbi Elazar is not geyser other shtaris because of Gittin. But the Gemara now brings up there could be another problem because Rav Papi Mishmei de Rav Papi says in the name of Rav as follows: Hi Ashrese de Daini. When you have the Bezdin that's coming to verify the authenticity of the signatures on the get. So after Bezdin, here's Eidim that testify about these signatures. So the Bezdin writes, it's called a hempik, right? They write a document to verify the signatures. So now, this hempik, this verification that the Bezdin writes, the michteve, mikame, the lissa de sahadi, achsimis yidayu, if the Bezdin actually wrote it up before the Eidim that are testifying about the authenticity of these signatures said their testimony, psula, it's going to be puzzle. Even though you have these Eidim that are standing right here, they're about to say their Eidus about the authenticity of these signatures. So Bezin wants to sort of prepare it in advance. And then afterwards, the Bezin will sign it. They'll put their signatures on it that, yes, this is a good hempik, but they're not allowed to write it up in advance. Says the Gemara, why? Alme, we see from this, what's the reason? Mechsi kishikra. Because it looks like a lie. You're writing up that we know that these are good signatures before you actually heard it from the Eidim. Even though they hear it afterwards, but when they wrote it, they didn't hear it yet, so it looks like what was written is a lie. If so, says the Gemara, you could say the same thing regarding every single shtar. Over here as well, doesn't it look like a lie? You write up a template of a loan, so the loan didn't happen yet, b'chlal. You're writing it up in advance. So even though you're filling in the details later, it could look like a lie because you're writing up the template of it in advance before the whole thing happened. So according to Rave, this is a problem. So the fact that Rava says it's a problem, we see that regarding this detail, we don't paskin like Rabbi Elazar. Okay, the Rishonim or the Mefarshim here actually discuss that l'chayre by a loan, when you're writing up this template in advance, it's not exactly mechzik shikra, because it's just a template. It doesn't say any details of names of the loive or the malve or the money. So why would a template look like Mechzik Shikra? By that case of Asher Sededainu, when they wrote up a proper hempik for the kiyum of the get, so they write up, we saw that this get is good, and they didn't even hear it yet. So over there it's Mamish Mechzik Shikra. This Mechzik Shikra here is much less of a Mechzik Shikra, but apparently the Gemara holds that to some extent it's still Mechzik Shikra, at least according to Rashi's pshat over here in the Gemara. But the Gemara says Velesa.
But just because Rava said
apparently, if Rava said so, that means that Rava held that in this detail we don't paskin like Rabbi Elazar in the Mishnah. Apparently, We've been passing like the other shittas that said in the Mishnah that even by every star, you cannot write up the template in advance. Right? That was Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, so that's what it looks like over here from Rabbi. And a Chanami, okay, but if Rabbi said so, it looks like that Rabbi knew that we don't pass like this. But the Gemara says, V'lese, what Rabbi says over here, we don't pass this way. With Rav Nachman, because what Rav Nachman said, that we're not concerned about the fact that something may look like a lie. Rav Nachman said, we had this a few times before. Rav Meir would also say, Afile motzai ba'ashpa, you have a get that was written and it was found then, the whole get, the taif, the whole get was written already with all the names and you find it in a garbage. And now someone else comes along, he has the same name, his wife has the same name, he takes it, chosmai v'nosnei law, he signs it with lishma, and then he gives it to the wife, kosher, it's going to be kosher. So over there, in that case, you pick up a get that was written for somebody else, and then you pick it up and use it for yourself to divorce a wife. So it also is mechzik shikra. It wasn't written up for you, b'chal. It was written for someone else. Right? But nevertheless, Rav Meir is not concerned about this. So basically, Rav Meir here regarding this detail holds the same like Rabbi Lazar that says in our Mishnah that we're not concerned about mechzik shikra. Now the Gemara adds, Rabbana that say that you can't just pick up a get from the garbage and use it for a get. Why? That's because for a get, they hold like Rabbi Lazar, there be an ksiva lishma. That not only the signature has to be lishma, but the writing has to be lishma. So that's why you can't do that. Aval b'shar shtar is loy. By any other star, the issue that something, a template is written up in advance and it could look like it's a lie because it wasn't written for this loan. The loan didn't happen yet. That's not a concern. And the Gemara brings a raya for this. The Amar Avasi, Amar Av Yechanan, shtar shalovabai, person that borrowed money, and he wrote up a document. He borrowed the money, uparay, and he borrowed the money, and he paid the money back right away on the same day. So now he has a shtar that's written with the date and with the amount of money, and he wants to go and borrow the money a second time again. He can't use the very same shtar on the very same day to go and borrow money again with it. Why not? Why can't he use the very same shtar? All the information on it is correct, so why can't he use the same shtar again? So Rabbi Yechanan says the reason is shekvar nimchal shibudoi. Reason is when you write a shtar and the milva was done with a shtar, the shtar creates a shibud. The shibud now will be on the karkois, even on the properties that are sold off. There's a difference between a milva al peh and a milva b'shtar. Milva al peh you can only collect from what's in the possession of the loive. A milva b'shtar, there's a much stronger shibud. But once this shibud was paid off, the shibud is bottled already. So you can't use the shtar again. So now the Gemara explains, what do I see from this? The only reason of the only issue that is of reusing the same shtar again is because you can't use the shibud of the shtar because the shibud is bottled already. But the issue that we're discussing, that you're using a shtar that was written in advance for something else, and now you want to reuse it for a different loan, and it looks like a lie, because you're using the shtar that was written for something else, that is not an issue. So Rashi says, if you would bring new chasimis that would sign this shtar again, so even though the whole shtar was written before for another loan, you can use it again. There's the issue of the shibud over here of the shtar, so that's why you can't use it again, but the chasimis, there's no problem with that. Okay, I mean, when Rashi says it could be that if you'll sign it again, then you will be able to use it even for the shibud. It becomes like a new shtar again. Yeah, you'll be able to use it 100%, even for the shibud of the shtar, right? But the issue that it was written before for a different loan, that doesn't bother us. From here we see that we're not chayshish for mechzik shikra.